Cool. I think you're good.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah. So, and how's the lighting looking?
What do you mean?
The senior setting.
As I said, it's on special.
It's on special?
Does it make me look even younger?
Unfortunately, it doesn't have that capability.
No.
It only helps with wrinkles and things like that.
Okay.
So luckily I had my AARP card, so which is
I don't know what that is.
that's a really good thing you don't know what that is.
What is it? It's like my
It's the
student
Ameri-
card.
it's
My student ID, but for old people.
The American Association of Retired People or retired pissed off people or something like that.
Okay,
It's basically when they're like, hey, you'll be dead soon. Here's some stuff like,
I have a question though.
Yeah. What?
So if we go for if we let's say go to the museum or something like that.
Yeah.
You know how I get a student discount?
Mm-hmm.
With that card, would you get a senior discount?
Perhaps.
Then you should get it.
No. I think you have to be 55.
Okay, so you got 4 years.
Yeah, until that discount. I can't wait. I just, every morning I wake up and I'm like, I'm a day closer to that discount. And I think about IHOP,
Do you
Denny's,
dream about it?
pancakes a third off.
With a ton of maple syrup on top of it. Do you want water for the show?
Well, someone's made me some water.
I wonder who that was. Shelby.
Appears to be an old fashioned, not a old fashioned.
An old fashioned?
An old fashioned.
I know that.
So, guys, before we get much further into any of this, let me explain something.
I'm sorry, okay, go ahead.
There's a certain thing called German humor. And German humor requires a certain amount of latitude, a certain amount of understanding, a certain amount of throwing them a lifeline, if you will. So, gang, we have a German/Polish young lady who's been trying her hand at making New Orleans style old fashions. And I have to say, they're pretty damn good. They're dastardly cocktails. Thanks.
Oh, sorry, it was in my head.
No, you're just stirring my drink with your hair. If it was ponytails, it'd be better because we could really get it stirred up. But they're really deceptive, as are many of the drinks here in New Orleans, like daiquiris that are like, oh, it's like candy and ice cream, and how come I'm peeing on myself in the middle of Bourbon Street and like vomiting all over people I don't know and things like, well, that's what happens. Anyways, okay, guys. So welcome back. Q&A Saturday, episode number 146. So nice to have handed off the hand signals to somebody else because obviously I struggled for 144 episodes. So we've decided to move this into a weekly show, which it does present some challenges. So one of them is travel. So if we're traveling, that's a big one. It can be really hard. T3, things like that, seminars. That's going to be a really interesting thing. So we'll have to see how we manage to pull that off. So fingers crossed. But boy, will you guys get a shit ton of good stuff if we're here every week. Like we will really throw down the best possible. Like I tell a lot of folks this, and I don't think they get it, that a lot of the content that I write and I create and present, put out, is fantastic, and I think it has a really valuable impact. But Q&A Saturday is a spot where we get to go into detail with specific situations and really dive in and give you information. So I think it's something that's been, for some folks, overlooked. A lot of folks have dove into it and been like, my God, it's like, the Ark of the Covenant. We found so much information and helped our dogs. So that's great. Let's talk about, I'm going to have to move on. So here's the other thing. We got so many questions that I'm going to work my ass off, and I don't know what's going to happen, but typically we do 5 questions. And when we're crazy, we try and do 10. What did I think I wrote down 20.
We have 4 times as many as what we usually do.
Yeah, so Germans are great with math too. So we've got 20 questions. I have no idea if we'll get through all of them, but I'm going to try and be brief. And brevity ain't my bag. So
What is it called? Long in the tooth?
Well, long in the tooth is an inside joke from way back, where I said long in the tooth on purpose, and a very certain person who will go unnameless called me out thinking that I was saying that long in the tooth meant that I was stretching things out and going long, whereas long in the tooth means old. As you get old, your gums recede, your teeth get longer, and so you're long in the tooth. And I mean, some could argue that as this gets older, it gets longer in the tooth. Maybe. But anyways, that's an...
We've been talking a lot about old people.
We have.
Okay.
Respectfully, though.
Yes, very.
Okay. So anyways, so basically, if I'm jamming through things, which will be a miracle, if I'm jamming through things, just understand why, because I'm trying to get through 20 questions, which is virtually impossible. So another color batch of leashes just arrived.
Today,
what colors?
Black.
Right. So just so everybody gets it, explain how we're really quick.
So,
how are we getting the orders?
Okay. We had arrived first. We had pink and navy, which means everyone who ordered pink or navy or both received those straight away. But if you ordered pink and black, then you had to wait until today until black arrived. So the second order was navy and
black
and red. So we had navy,
and what?
Red.
There you go. I'm
So
not sure what red is.
We had navy and red arrive. So there's only black, and there was only black and turquoise or teal missing. But now that we have black, everyone who ordered black, pink, navy, grey or red will get their leashes unless turquoise was in the mixture. But black and the others are going out tomorrow morning actually. I'm going to get up extra early and make sure I get them all out. And yes, I've been bullied into cookies again.
Bullied into cookies. You were
brownies.
You were bullied into a calzone, I saw too.
Ashley.
Ashley's a bad influence, and in so many different
ways.
yeah,
In
like
so many
whether
ways.
it's like spending on guns or on like cameras
and
or on bicycles,
microphones.
on microphones, on tech, on and he prides himself on it. He likes to see himself be able to bring people to their knees financially, and so it's a sad state of affairs. And with the calzone, bring people to their knees calorically. So calzone is definitely not known as like a light food. Anyways, so let's boogie on. Those leashes will be coming soon. As soon as turquoise hits, we're going to shoot all the pictures for them. Then they will all end up on the website. Everybody will be able to order from the website rather than old school ghetto style from our email, but which is amazingly sold hundreds and hundreds of leashes. Thank you very much. But we'll have them on the website very, very soon. And let's see what else is going on here. We've got the great gimbal battle. I want you guys to weigh in and leave your vote here. So this lady, Ashley, you son of a bitch. So Ashley has put a little bug in her ear that she needs a gimbal in order to video professionally.
Super professional, super high quality, extra super duper everything with cheese on top. And sprinkles.
A
and
whole lot of
unicorn
cheese.
Poop.
What?
Unicorn poop.
Okay.
Gimbal.
So that's, once again, Mr. Ashley Smintek's work. He's like, well,
But he never
the
even
smile on
mentioned-
your fiance's face is worth any price. I'm like, if you don't mind, fuck you. Anyways, so
It is worth a lot though,
so
right?
we'll
Right?
yeah, but we just don't really have anything to use it exactly
We do.
for.
I would like film you
That's
walking all
that's
day
the
or
argument.
something.
That's why it's the great battle. Here's the thing, weigh in. Please vote in the comments. Do we need a gimbal? Do we not need a gimbal? Are we being
Hashtag Marta needs a gimbal.
gimbo? Anyways, or gumbo. Okay, so something else going on. The LA switch, the LA NOLA switch,
Oh, that's
which
gonna be fun.
which means me and Marta are headed to LA, and we are switching with the very famous Henri, who's going to be coming to New Orleans for her very first time ever. She's very close friends with Shelby, who lives very close. And so she's going to be training dogs here at our place, staying at our place, and seeing the city. We're going to be out in LA working with shadow students and helping the team there. And it'll be a little vacation for Henri to just like see a little bit of the world, have a little fun, and just it worked out in a really nice way to be able to trade things off, and yeah, and get her out here just because we're excited. She's somebody like, I mean, she jumps out of freaking airplanes, so she's like, she's got to see.
Every place she travels to, doesn't she?
I don't
think
know.
so.
I probably, but she needs to see New Orleans. If you're ready to jump out of airplanes, you're ready for New Orleans. So Henri's coming down, so that'll be interesting. You'll see some pictures of her and Shelby and videos, I'm sure. We'll be in LA working with shadow students and working with the team. And then the last thing is track day battles between me and Ashley Smentek coming up on the 27th. We will be at Big Willow Racetrack. Big Willow Racetrack is known as, if I'm not mistaken, the fastest racetrack in North America, meaning that the turns are long and wide and the straights are very long and you can hit massive speeds. I've tracked there before. I talked Ashley into it, and he's like fighting to see if he can wear flip-flops while he races. He's like, can I wear flip-flops and a helmet? I'm just like, I don't have an answer for him. He's incorrigible and
Does he even like have a pair of normal shoes?
I haven't seen him.
I've never seen him.
I haven't seen him either.
He probably doesn't have
I haven't seen
a
him.
pair of shoes.
Anyway, so he wants to wear shorts, sandals, or not
Jandals.
even sandals. No, they're flip-flops, we call them.
They're called jandals.
Okay, flip-flops, shorts, a t-shirt, and a helmet. But the biggest part about this is the race. He's got I said a Volkswagen. He's got I thought a Volkswagen. He's got a Mustang GT 350, one of the new ones, which is a super, super impressive machine. And then I've got my older girl, my older Porsche. It's not super old, but 2011, which I traded my 2018 for the 2011 because it's way more fun. And it's being currently tweaked and tuned up at the shop to be ready for some racing action to see how me and Ashley do. The bottom line is Ashley has had a lot of years as a sheriff being trained how to drive in all sorts of conditions, all sorts of situations. It's not race work exactly, but he's also done a fair amount of, let's say, lead footing around his areas. So he's no stranger to speed. He also has a lot of experience probably driving across the city at high rates of speed, chasing bad guys. So he's got some experience on me with that. But I've also got some experience of driving like a maniac ever since I was like 18. So we'll see how it balances out. And I've been practicing my ass off. So that's really exciting. And with that, let's jump into the show.
Question number one.
Yeah.
Numero uno.
I need a cocktail. Sorry.
I should do like questions in different languages. Let's start with question numero uno.
Let's not get too fancy.
Question number one.
And there we go. I like it. Yeah.
Okay. Question number one is on Instagram from Wayo Canine Training. Wow.
It's not whale like as in something that swims in the ocean.
WAO Canine Training. I would love to know what that stands for.
We're probably going to need subtitles at some point. I get the feeling.
Maybe. But the question is from WAO Canine Training. How would you qualify a puppy under 5 months old for e-collar training? What traits to look for?
Uh-oh, is that it?
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Are you still punching?
No. Okay. Here we go. Man, those are good cookies. If anybody ever gets to New Orleans, contact the Nola Cookie Company and ask for the toffee butter cookies.
Yes.
Ask for a lot of them. Okay, anyways, so WAOK9 training, WAOK9, not whale, but Waco. Who knows where I'm going with this? How do you qualify? How do you qualify a pup for e-collar work? The dog's approximately 5 months old. It's a really good question. And there's a lot of mixed messages, a lot of mixed information out there. And basically for us, we'll start at the very, very early end, 3 months. But that's exceptional. That's rare. That's with dogs that have had a ton of previous foundational work and they're really in a good, clear headspace. Other than that, 4 to 5 months is a really good place where you can start moving into e-collar work. Now, what are the criteria? What qualifies the dog to be able to do that? They have to have gone through food work to be able to understand all the commands first with food. So sit, down, place, recall, heel, crate.
Waiting for food.
Anything I'm missing? The basic commands. Let's just say the basic commands. Then you need to make sure that the dog understands or the pup understands how to give to leash pressure. Because it's one thing to just teach e-collar stuff, but it's imperative, and this is something a lot of people miss, it's imperative that dogs, even puppies, know how to give to leash pressure so you don't find yourself in a situation with an e-collar trained dog that's grown up or is out somewhere having a freak out about something, and then you go to add leash pressure and then you get an explosion because the dog's never had to deal with that before, especially under pressure. So it's critical that the dog is of the right age, 4 to 5 months, rock and roll, that's rock solid. Make sure the dog understands all the basic commands and it's all been done through luring and food and markers and reward. Like all of that stuff should be super clear. You can get all that stuff off the internet, like from good trainers, like really watch what you're doing. And then make sure that what we would be doing is like a tiny little prong collar and leash and making sure that when we say down, the downs happen and they don't only happen from food, right? And then we start to overlay the e-collar on top of that. And that we still have the leash and prong on. We want to start to fade the food. We can reward intermittently. We want to start to fade the food, and we want to start to make sure that the dog is accountable. But having the leash on is an imperative part of making sure that you can make that transition. So food foundation, leash and prong foundation, and then moving on to e-collar foundation, being overlapped, overlaid over all of that so the dog knows what's being asked of it and that you have the tools beyond just the e-collar to guide the dog into position if needed. And it's really that simple. Patience, reading the dog, making sure that you're being fair, all of that stuff. But that's kind of the basic foundation.
Okay.
Cool? Cool. Moving faster.
Question 2. Question number 2 is on Instagram from nsharp13. If your dog is rehabbed already from leash aggression and an untrained off-leash dog comes charging, is it okay for you to let your dog react at any point in defense? Or do you have to basically try to block the other dog the whole time? Thanks.
No, it's never okay to let your dog have to deal with the situation unless you want your dog that you've worked so hard to not be reactive to become reactive again. It's a very simple process. If your dog doesn't feel that you can keep it safe, your dog will work very hard to keep itself safe. It's as simple as that. So, off-leash dog comes charging. If you say, oh crap, I'm gonna let my dog take care of this, your dog goes, off-leash dogs are dangerous. I have to get into a fight. I have to protect myself. This becomes the pattern. Or off-leash dog comes up, put your dog behind you, dog comes running in, you give that dog a nice boot, or you've got a walking stick, a little clunk over the head, knock it off, get the hell out of here. You have to be firm. I mean, guys, like, everybody's so worried about hurting a dog's feelings or that a dog might incur some kind of discomfort. It's like, if a dog is off leash and charging your dog, it's fucking serious. This could be vet bills. This could be a dead dog. This could be you getting bitten to shit as you try and break it all up. Like, let's not do that. Instead, protect your dog. Man up, woman up, be strong with it. Like, this is my dog. Don't get in that space of like, my dog's gonna work it out. Like, only if you want your dog to be a wreck, only if you want your dog to be reactive, only if you want your dog to not trust you, then go that route. You want your dog, like with my guys, we'd be out on a walk and a dog would come charging up. I'd boot that dog so far across the street, my dogs were like, Dad's got this. Surprisingly, they all chilled out and bought into the program. So, easier said than done. So, booting a dog, don't be afraid to make a dog uncomfortable, to nail a dog, to hurt them if they mean harm to you or your dog. Pet convincer can also keep a lot of dogs away. Walking stick is always a popular one. Can be complicated with only having so many arms, so many hands to be able to actually hold that stuff. But having some kind of a plan, and more than anything, this is a hard one, but being confident and just saying like, I'm not going to walk out here with my dog and be tentative and here comes an off-leash dog and now I'm going to panic and I don't know what to do. It's like, lead, freaking lead everybody. And I'm not just talking to you, I'm talking to everybody. This whole cultural malaise, this whole mentality of like, everybody's soft and nobody wants to hurt any feelings and nobody wants to make anybody uncomfortable. And you end up with all of this friction because nobody's willing to set boundaries. Like, fuck it, enough. If you're off leash and you mean us harm, sorry, it's not going to be us. It's going to be you. Get the fuck out of here. Enough. Sorry about the F-bombs, but it's really important. I hear about too many dogs that show up at our place reactive, dog aggressive, in a shitty space, nervous, freaked out, anxious on walks, all because dogs have come up to them on leash and pressured them, or come up to them off leash and pressured them, and then they just lose trust and you go from there. So hope that helps.
It's a very sad thing.
Yeah.
It really is.
I mean, nobody wants to kick a dog, but like,
No.
it's much
Honestly,
better. It's much better than vet bills.
When
And
Archie was little, if I would have known I could do that, I would have had a dog now who isn't scared like that.
do you want to tell them what happened?
So Archie, if you have seen him on any of like Sean's Instagram stories, Archie's our little ginger border collie. When he was 6 months old, I was down by the lake with him and my two other dogs, a Malamute and another border collie, and two staffies came running up and attacked Archie. But I didn't have I literally didn't know what to do.
How old was Archie?
6 months.
6 months.
And he ended up having to have his whole jaw stitched up. And since then he started getting reactive. And till this day, I mean, you know it, but basically till this day, he would never attack a dog. He's not leash reactive, but he looks for space big times. Anytime there's a dog close by, he leaves the room.
And if he's pressured too much,
he could.
He becomes typically defensive.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I have to watch that no dogs. So Archie does a good job of walking away on his
Yeah,
own.
he really
to avoid
does.
Pressure, like he will leave 100%. But if the dog is persistent, he will get defensive, which could end up in a dog fight, which isn't great. But again, if I would have known I could do that, I would have. So that's
yeah. So a little bit of real life story.
yeah.
Okay. Next.
Question number 3. Instagram from Cat's Not My Name.
Good name.
I have a dog that went through a boot camp. He had a few bites on his record. He's a changed man. He's great now, except he's very enthusiastic about everything. He has decent recall. Enthusiastic. He has decent recall, but even inside runs at you like a maniac. And I feel like he's always on high alert. I close my laptop, he leaps up like we are going somewhere. I sneeze, same thing. I answer the phone call, he wants to be right there.
It's a lot of things.
And when I give affection, he's never done. Starts climbing on me, etc. He's a 60-pound lab. It's not fun. How do I slow him down and remind him every little thing isn't his business? I can't even allow little kids to pet him because he gets too wiggly and climbs and knocks them down. I don't worry about a bite anymore, but I do worry about him hurting someone.
The easiest approach, which isn't the most socially popular, is hog tying and a muzzle. And I'm telling you, like, you're not going to win any friends. No one's going to be like, wow, you're dog owner of the year. But if you learn how to, like, really, really significantly, like the way they do it in the rodeos, significantly learn how to hog tie your lab and then muzzle him, like, you won't have any of those problems. He'll just...
I don't know what hog tie.
Hog tie means when you, like, take, like, a pig or a cow and they're upside down, you tie all four of their legs together to where they, you know, it's like, it's in rodeo stuff, right? To where they can't move. Yeah.
Okay.
They
so
hog
just
tie.
tie the...
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll do a little.
Do a hog tie for us.
You're hog tied like this.
Nice.
And then you muzzle me.
Okay.
And then your laptop's safe and your kids are safe. And I'm like, maybe I should do something else. Anyways, okay. So that's obviously not the real answer, but it would be a great answer. Okay. So here's the deal. Punish the arousal first and foremost. If you've got a wild and crazy lab running around, it's normal, but it's also normal for owners to step up and set rules and set boundaries for the behavior that's appropriate and not appropriate. And the way you do that is by punishing arousal. And everybody wants to do something else. Everybody wants to do something, once again, back to that same thing: kinder, politer, sweeter, easier, non-confrontational, no discomfort. The reality is your dog is making you all of those things. Like, he's making you really uncomfortable. He's making your life stressful. He's making all this stuff go on. So instead, make life better for you, make life better for him because you won't be pissed off at him, and punish it, right? Get a bonker. Just type into YouTube, Gary Wilkes, Gary
Wilkes.
Yes, bonker training, Bonker training. And he'll show you how to build a bonker, which is a roll-up towel with some rubber bands on it. And he'll teach you how to correct with using correct verbal markers, and then how to actually correct your dog. And what it will do, even though if it looks like barbaric stuff and you're like, oh my God, I'd never hit my dog with a rolled up towel. It's like, really? He's happy to, like, knock your laptop off and, like, drag you around the house and all that stuff.
Knock kids over.
Knock kids over, and maybe, you know, who knows, maybe, like, bite somebody down the road. Anyways, remove the arousal by bonking the dog. Simplest thing. You could do it with a leash and a prong, but a bonker is way easier. It's just cheap, easy, you can have anywhere with you. You don't have to have tools on your dog. Bonk him. And if you do it right and you're consistent, use enough pressure when you do it, you'll see your dog, like, arousal levels just come way down. And that doesn't mean you'll have this beat up, suppressed, like, oh my God, like, broken dog. It means you'll have a dog that's, instead of being vibrating up here, it'll be down here. And it'll be calm and it'll be cool. And you can teach him things that you like. So once you get rid of the arousal and the craziness, and I'm telling you, it ain't that hard to do. You follow what I just shared with you, where search that stuff out. Go search that out. Put it, implement it, put it into action, and then from there teach, I would say, like, in an easy kind of low, what do I say? In a very simplistic format, just do leash and prong for place command, down, and walk. And, like, you should have a pretty great dog. If you can get your lab to be not aroused, you can get him to walk on a prong nicely, you can get him to go to place and stay there nicely wearing a leash and prong inside the house while supervised, and you can get him to down also while in the house while supervised, then you're on your way to having a very different situation where kids can run around and your dog just, like, hangs out in place. It might sound like a fantasy right now, but it's only because you haven't been able to see it. I guarantee you, if I could, like a genie, like, bing, like, bonk, not bonk, but, like, zing my way over to your place, I could probably get rid of the arousal and teach those commands within half an hour to 45 minutes and have a very different situation. And I don't say that to brag, I say it to share with you how easy it can be. So
It's much nicer.
Yeah, much nicer.
Okay, question number 4. Instagram. TR Hardoby one.
It's a hard one.
It is a Hardoby. Okay. My dogs are not allowed on my bed. My shepherd jumped up. I told him off, and down he went to his bed. My lab, on the other hand, put himself in front of my kids, rolled onto his belly, and would not come off the bed. E-collar was off at this point for bed. When I reached to grab him, he mouthed me, snapped. No real pressure, whatever you want to call it. He hasn't done this. Any suggestions? I put him in his crate in another room for the night.
Okay, first and foremost,
It's the labs.
it's always the labs. I'm super happy that you've got the rules about no bed. But beyond that, it sounds like a believable leadership issue. And so, and that sounds nebulous. It sounds like, well, what does that mean? Believable leadership means that if you kind of switch gears and think about it being in the form of like parents and kids, you all know parents, whether it's you or whether it's somebody else in your family or somebody you know, parents who love their kids but have strong, firm rules and the kids never push against it. And then you probably also know parents that have kids that try and create rules and try and create structure and try and create accountability, but don't follow through and the kids don't buy into it and they just steamroll them. So that's believable leadership versus non-believable leadership. My first instinct when I hear that is like, not to like throw you under the bus, but non-believable leadership. And you may feel like, well, but I'm giving him these rules. I'm not letting him up on the bed. So how is that not believable leadership? Believable leadership is a much wider scoped thing. It's not just about like, okay, he's not allowed on the couch. He's got to wait for his food and he can't go out the threshold quick. No, that's like the teeniest, teeny tiny part. The other part is when your dog does something you don't like, consequences befall your dog that your dog does not like. That's where you start to bring your leadership up to a believable level. This, once again, here's the theme of the show, the stuff nobody wants to hear, the discomfort, the laying down the law, the being the heavy, the, enforcing the rules, making your dog uncomfortable. Nobody wants to hear it. That's where it's at. Like, I'll share a quick story. My dog Junior, some folks who have watched Q&A Saturday before know the story. They might even be chuckling right now. Junior was 6.5, 7 months, laying on the couch. And this is before I was a dog trainer, before I knew anything, but I had some intuition. And I sat down next to him, and he was a chow mix. And everybody knows chows have got a little swagger. And, I sat down next to him, and he growled at me. And that was the time that Junior learned to fly. And so I didn't do anything fancy. I didn't have any tools. I didn't have a bonker. I didn't do anything. I simply took him and I went whoop, and I tossed him off the couch. And the look in his eyes as he went across the room, and I'm not like, he didn't bounce off the walls and it wasn't anything insane, but it was a psychologically, much more than a physical situation, psychologically very, very impactful for him. So if you think about it in a very simplistic, animalistic form, I'm a dog, I'm on the couch, I really like this spot right here. You just sat down next to me. I don't like it. Does this work? Does it move you away? Do I get what I want? Or do I go flying across the room? Okay, I went flying across the room. That didn't work so well. Let me try something different. Maybe I need to actually respect this person that's sitting next to the couch or sitting next to me on the couch. It becomes more of a social status issue where you balance things out into a good space, where I should say where you don't balance them out, where you clarify, human here, dog here. So even though you weren't on the couch, your dog was on the bed and shouldn't have been on the bed. Now, I have to be careful. I don't want you to like grab your dog's collar, because I think that's another one of the questions in here. Grab your dog's collar and like yank him off or do anything that's going to get yourself hurt. But what I do want you to think about, or the mindset I want you to be in, is how freaking dare you growl, resist, snap, put your mouth on me, whatever it looked like. How freaking dare you get the F off my bed? And in no uncertain terms. That clear. Now, how you go about that is going to depend a lot upon the tools that you use and upon how the situation actually looks physically, where your dog's at, and all this stuff. But if you stay in the mindset of like, this is my house, these are my rules, and don't you dare challenge me when I ask you to get off of my bed. And if you allow it, and if I think you said you put him in his crate, if I'm not mistaken, all you did was just put him in his crate. You didn't teach him, you didn't connect a consequence. Here's the important part. You didn't connect a consequence to that moment. You didn't connect a consequence, although a lot of people will tell you that you did. He got a timeout. Bullshit. What he needed was the junior express.
If you wouldn't mind me adding, because
Yeah.
there was a mention about that the e-collar was off at that point. And even though e-collars are great for corrections, especially like to be neutral and not emotional, that would probably be also like a good moment where it wouldn't be neutral. That to not have the e-collar on and having to use a different method to like correct for the growling in that moment, for it not to be neutral but be more animalistic, be more
Physical, more primal.
physical, more primal.
So it gets challenging, right? So it's a good point. The problem is that you find yourself in trouble. So the e-collar is great because it allows you the ability to, especially if you teach your dog like out, no, not questions, but commands like that. Then if your dog's in a place on your bed and you don't want it, and he's giving you a hard time, it's just like roll up, out, or no, or off, or whatever your command is, and your dog's like. So e-collar can be great for that, but will you get more bang for your buck through a physical interaction? Here's the uncomfortable part. Here's the part nobody wants to hear. Here's the part that everybody doesn't like. You probably would. Now, if you could only do it safely, then that would be the only time I'd recommend it. But like I've said, when Junior went for his little spin, I wasn't worried about him biting me. I wanted to make sure the impression was completely clear to him that that would no longer be accepted. So if the tools are on, use the tools, see what you get from them. If they're not on, then you need to find another way. Like, hell, grab the blanket, grab the sheet. Like, this is what I would do. If I had no tools on my dog and I didn't trust grabbing my dog's collar or touching him or anything like that, I'd take the blanket and I'd be like, boom, off you go. Like, get creative. Stop thinking about hurting your dog's feelings or that you're going to physically damage him by actually correcting him or sharing consequences. You'll get a lot farther, and what you'll see, here's the last thing I'll close this out with, you do that stuff right, and a lot of other shitty behaviors will just dissipate because your dog will have a completely different perspective on you and of you, and social status will be this, human here, dog here, and that will be a very nice thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Question number 5 is from Kim B99. This is going to be an easy one for you, probably. I bought a dog off the internet for $20 last fall. Beautiful black female pit lab. I think she just turned a year old, but don't really know. She's smart, listens well, and looks to me for guidance. The biggest problem I have is she will not come to me unless she wants to. She comes when I first get home in the evenings, and she stays in the yard with the other 2 dogs most of the time. But when she wants to be to the front porch, road is out there, she starts heading that way. She won't even look at me when I call her or tell her no. Help. Thank you.
This is the great challenge of probably 99% of dog owners out there. The great keep away game. The great, like, if you got something I want, I'll come see you. If you don't, you can go F yourself. This game just is like, this has probably been played out for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. So for us, like, there are techniques you can use You can go through old school books like the Keeler book, and you can use training techniques like that. You can use food stuff. We don't subscribe to either of those. We don't do any kind of like really the old school like leash and excuse me, oh, right on the mic, leash, long line and choke chain or prong collar or something like that, and then like do these big recalls and anything. We don't do any of that. And we don't do food work for recalls except for puppies and to reward proper behavior, but that's predicated on e-collar training. So all the dogs that we train, and everybody's like, oh my God, they train every dog with e-collar. It's like, it should be, e-collar should go to the right dog, and you know, not every dog needs a prong collar or an e-collar. It's like, and there's some truth to that, but the reality is that probably 99% of dogs could benefit from having e-collar training, even if you only had to use it for tiny little moments of like, oh, there's a rabbit, come on back, or there's, you know, like, stop barking in the backyard.
Gives you so much more freedom.
Stop digging in the backyard. Don't do, you know, I mean, all sorts of stuff. So e-collar training would be the answer. At least e-collar recall. I've got several videos on it. You can jam into it.
Yeah, awesome.
Yep, cool.
Question number 6.
Yeah.
Instagram from Dave9.
Mm-hmm.
My dog is almost 14 years old.
Mm-hmm.
At 11 years old, she was still running like the wind, chasing after her beloved ball. Now she does not see too well, she does not hear too well, and I take her on a very, very few short walks now because the arthritis is worse. She drags her feet and I take her on a few very short walks. Okay, so it's doubled, sorry. And she will start to limp if I go longer. Plus now the warmer weather makes things even more difficult for her. The problem is her brain thinks she's 2 years old, which is actually pretty inspirational. In the yard she will try to run but falls, but I see that she has pent up energy. Most dogs her age would be content to sleep all day. Not my dog, God bless her insatiable soul. So I have understood that I should try brain exercise to spend that energy. That's a whole new game for me. Brain only, no physical. I don't know where to start. Any thoughts?
Okay, so this brings me back to my girl Belle. My girl Belle passed away just recently, maybe last year, and we don't know her exact age, but she was probably in the same ballpark, between 12 and 14. And same thing, the day before I took her to the hospital, the emergency room, we were out playing with her ball, and she was chasing this big like wiggly giggly and doing her thing and being crazy. But we had stopped taking walks because her arthritis was terrible, and I couldn't bring myself to do it. As much as she wanted to walk, it was just watching her like, you know, hump. I mean, she had a really bad situation with her elbow and this whole arm. And so, but she wanted to go. And so I totally feel you and feel for you. It was a really hard one to find. How do I try and find a way to keep her quality of life good while trying not to degrade her physical state? And so we would do little things inside the house, like we'd play tug on a rug, you know, sound like Dr. Seuss, tug on a rug. We'd play tug on a rug, so where she wasn't slipping and sliding, things like that, or tug in the yard. And that way she could like use her teeth and use some body pressure, but yeah, and it would be a lot of exertion for her, but not anything where she's running and then like making a quick stop or anything like that, even though I just told you that I was having her chase her ball. It was like, to be honest, we really made kind of that deal with each other. It was like, I know this is going to hurt to a certain extent, and I know you're probably going to limp afterwards, but I know how much it makes you happy that I'm going to make that trade-off. And so we made certain concessions or certain deals with the devil about that stuff. But for the most part, I monitored that, and I didn't do a ton of it. I just did a bit. So Doing tug, having a Kong. There's several different Kong treats or Kong toys out there, and you can stuff them with peanut butter. You can stuff them with kibble. You can do all sorts of things. And then if you really want to go down the rabbit hole, you go to Petco or PetSmart or any of the big box stores, or go to Amazon and start looking at dog puzzles. And there's a multitude of puzzles that they can go through to, to like try and get like a piece of something out of something, a little piece of kibble out of a really complex toy that can take them for a long time. So that'll burn a lot of brain stuff, but it's not an easy one, man. I so get it. And watching your like spirited dog fade and lose the ability to act physically in what their mind wants to do is a heartbreaker. So do your best and use your best judgment, and I just wish you good luck.
Yeah. It's a shame they live so short. That's for sure. Okay, so question number 7 on Instagram is from Kimberly M. Hay.
Mm-hmm.
How do you properly correct a dog when you're on a walk and they react using either the e-collar or the prong? Do you say no and give the correction as soon as you see them ready to bark, or do you give them another command to get their attention? Do you keep walking or walk the other way if the other dog is too close?
Whew, that's a whole bunch of stuff. Let me see if I can do this really quick. So at the split second, first of all, you have to have your dog. We teach all of our dogs with reactivity stuff to be on a prong and e-collar. So did she say she's on both or just one?
Using either e-collar or prong.
Okay, I'd suggest you use both. Let me move this out of the way. I would suggest you use both. All of our dogs train for walks with prong and e-collar, and the prong gives directional information to the e-collar because the e-collar does not give directional information. The prong also gives you a lot of control if you need it in a dire situation. It gives you safety in case like a car backfires or a cat or a squirrel runs by you or another dog runs up to you off leash and you need to like kind of wrangle your dog away. So prong collar and e-collar are the tools that I recommend as your foundational starting point. And let me see if I can be really clear about this. The prong collar should be a very, very, very secondary tool on your walks. Once you've trained your dog to heel, it should be an e-collar heel. The prong should only be used to teach your dog the direction of like, here's your position. E-collar pressure on, press and hold at a low level, prong slowly pulling back, dog's in position, e-collar comes off, leash relaxes, mark it with good, over and over and over and over and over again until your dog learns that's the position. So we just lost the camera there, so let's see if I can review it. So don't pull up on the prong to try and correct. You're just going to add more tension and probably more drive to the dog. I'm trying to think where I was with that. It's just really a simple process. It's neutral body language, neutral tone. Make sure your dog can hear your no, but it doesn't sound like you're worried, upset, angry, and make sure you don't seem worried, upset, angry with your arm with what you do here. So a really good correction looks like this. You're walking down the street, your dog starts to see another, see something and you know it's coming. You roll up a little bit. No. It literally looks like that. No. That's it. And your dog should go and look away. And if it doesn't, roll up. No. Don't change this with every change of the e-collar. No. It should never be like that. It should be no, 40, no, 60, no, right? That's how it works. And you just keep your arm relaxed. Now, if your dog starts to go bananas, you reel him in, you keep him safe. But that's really the technique. And I think people make it far more complicated. It's really based on 2 principles. Teach your dog how to e-collar heel fantastically. Like it'll remove 90% or 95% of reactivity and arousal issues. So you already have brought things down to a really, really safe, solid, highly high likelihood of success situation, if that makes any sense. And then you correct at the first second of any kind of escalation, and it's really that simple.
Can I add something real quick?
Yeah.
So in the question it says, do you say no and give the correction as soon as you see them ready to bark? So I just wanted to mention that you don't want to wait until they want to bark or lunge. You don't want to wait until it's too late. So you basically have almost like 3 steps or 4 steps. The dog notices something like a dog or a cat, then they start to get aroused, then they bark or lunge, and
then all hell breaks loose.
So you want to get them at the very first beginning. So if you already see a dog or a cat, whatever the trigger is, already roll up then, preemptively. So this moment there's already just like a, what is that? You go no. Because otherwise you are, instead of being down here, you're already up here. And then it's much harder to get back down here than to stay here consistently and not climb that ladder.
Yeah.
And also the last part of the question was, do you keep walking or do you walk the other way if the dog is too close? So if the dog is like really close, we usually just take a bubble of space. So you walk on the sidewalk.
She said bubble, just like a little workaround. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you walk on the sidewalk, the dog is, you coming here, there's a dog coming here, you want to go around to where you're so close by because you want to hold your dog accountable
and push their level of ability.
Yes.
Right? So you're always trying to kind of navigate, like, you go too far, you make no progress. You go too close and you make no progress. But you find this nice magic zone where it's challenging for your dog, and then get them through that, even if it's hard, then you start making progress. So it's super important. And there was something you said about, okay, so with as far as the reactivity stuff, basically you've got like 1 through 10. Every owner and trainer, but most trainers, every owner waits too long to correct their dog, and that's what Marta's talking about. So we have this phrase, this saying called too low, too slow, and it means that owners e-collar levels are too low and they're correcting too slow, which means they're way behind their dog. Their dog starts to escalate and then they correct, but the level is way too low. So the dog's moving like this, you're coming here, your level's too low and your timing's too late. Now, the reverse of that is the dog's coming up, you beat him and the level's higher and you bring that down. So that's the trick.
Awesome. Question number 8, Instagram, Kiki.
Yep.
I do believe I asked last week, but I'll try again. Here goes. Do you have any interest in doing another TGD location, say maybe in Indiana?
Well, Kiki, we would love to do that, and we're always open to entertaining new endeavors and enterprises at some point, but at this point, we are knee-deep in getting New Orleans completely off the ground and stable and in a really great space, and making sure LA is rocking and rolling. So between these 2 cities, seminars, workshops, writing books, and everything else.
And now the Q&A show.
And the Q&A show and the leashes. It's just too much right now. So we'll see how it goes, but no plans for right now. Sorry.
Okay, next question is my question.
Yeah.
Question number 9 on Facebook from Tony. I have a
Tony who?
Tony Shields.
Just so everybody knows who Tony Shields is, or was, well, he still is. He was in some respects. Tony Shields was one of our trainers for several years, and he's a very, very good friend of mine. And he just lost his beloved, him and Shanna just lost their beloved dog, Astro, their Roddy. And so I appreciate his question because it shows his resilience and how great he is. But love you, man, and love you guys, love you both. So anyways, go ahead.
So the question is, I have a 2-headed dog. Do I need 2 e-collars, and can I get a discount on the board, right? So, Tony, luckily for you, they have invented double dog remote collars, so you can have one remote for your two-headed dogs with two e-collars. So you don't need two e-collars, you just need two receivers and only one remote.
That's great news.
And you always get a discount. And
Always.
we will make you a special leash that requires you to only have one leash but two heads.
But
or like two
something like that.
Two
collars. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying.
But I can't wait to see this dog. I can't wait to see this dog.
Yeah. What do you call a dog like that?
Whatever it wants to be called.
Okay. Okay.
Let's move on. Yeah.
Question number 10 on Facebook from Brittany Straw. Hey TGD gang, how would you go about training a pushy, aggressive dog to heel next to you if they have a damaged trachea? Thankfully,
If they what?
Have a damaged trachea.
I thought you said something about a Danish. Like I was like, oh, I'm getting hungry. Like if they have a Danish something, I was like, oh, pastries.
No, if they have a damaged trachea.
Okay.
Thankfully, he can wear an e-collar, but I'm having a hard time because I can't use a prong. We have tried a gentle leader, but with that underneath, the muzzle seems to not work as effectively. I have also tried heel taps, but this dude is a tank and it doesn't seem to phase him. All of the obedience duration work in the house is rock solid. Thanks for all you do. Can't wait for the red new leashes to arrive at my door.
Most
Yay.
excellent.
Very soon on those leashes, Brittany.
Yes, hang tough. The red ones look great too.
Yeah, I love the red.
Yeah, the red looks really good. Okay, Brittany, okay, so this is a pretty simple answer.
She said red as in cool, not red as in the color.
Oh, sorry, we've got a language issue.
Red. See, that's why
She
when I say
she
red,
said rad or
she
red?
said R-A-D.
Rad.
Yeah, red, because for me
Okay.
it's red. The color is red.
You guys, you know what I'm struggling with here, right?
It's
Anyway,
red.
okay. So,
Whatever.
Regardless of the leashes, colors, or
Accents.
affection for them, here's the deal. Just use the harness in the same way you'd use the prong, because here's the deal. E-collars don't give any directional information. Now, it's going to be a little harder with the harness because the harness is not going to connect and communicate in the same delightful fashion that a prong collar will. You're going to have to use a lot more pressure, which is their drag about them, in order to have the dog care about the pressure that you're trying to share or administer through the harness, which probably means you'll also have to use a little bit of a higher level on the e-collar. So with the prong, you can use very light pressure and typically pretty light pressure on the e-collar, and it can strike a nice balance of like, here's the pressure, here's the direction, here's what you should do with that pressure, right? And that's a pretty easy game for a dog to figure out. With a harness, the dog's going to be more inclined to pull. It's just the nature of the beast. So you're going to have to guide the dog back and just think of it as a prong collar or any other collar. Press and hold, guide the dog back. It's a simple process. Heel, guide him back, maybe some higher levels to make sure he cares. It should feel, so, I always like to equate it to like when the level's right on the e-collar, the pulling back feels like butter. If it's too low, it feels like you're dragging the dog and trying to force him in. But when you press, hold, say heel, and start to guide back, and if you're feeling resistance and you roll up a little bit, all of a sudden it gets real easy, you know you just kind of hit a spot where the e-collar level is like right on the money. So there's no easy answer, unfortunately, but there is an answer. And if I had the dog, that's exactly what I would do. I would just use the harness as the directional guidance tool and the e-collar to train the heel and rock and roll from there. I think you'll be fine.
Awesome. Cool.
Yeah.
Question number 11 on Facebook from Michelle L. Jenkins McGilvery. And Michelle is asking, so glad your Q&A is coming back. Mine is more a personal question. I have the desire, the drive, the skills and the knowledge, and I'm working toward my own training business. how do I get over this fear of where is the money going to come from, and what if I fail? I have started reading the Icarus Deception, as you suggested as well.
Icarus Deception by Seth Godin.
Okay.
Great book.
And she says, thank you.
Okay. All right. So she's afraid to launch her training business. I'm just kind of like paraphrasing and overviewing due to financial and safety concerns.
Yeah.
Safety concerns meaning like lifestyle and things like that. So here's the deal. We all face the same worry. We all face the same worries and concerns when it comes to this stuff. There's no getting around it. Everybody who starts a business is nervous. Everybody's anxious. Everybody's
Sorry.
like, are you just...
I'm sorry.
It's her second
I'm
show.
sorry.
Can we keep this over there? Thanks, that'd be great. She's like, are you concentrating? How's it going? So, anyways, everybody who does this, everybody who starts a business, whether it's in dog training or otherwise, is nervous. They're insecure. They're worried. That you're risking. You're starting something that you have no idea if it's going to work. So it makes sense that you're concerned and that you're worried. So just know that you're in good company, and know that I was in the same exact place. I had no guarantees that it was going to work. I just knew what I wanted, and that I was going to work as hard as I could to try and make it happen. And I was pretty certain I wasn't going to take no for an answer. So that was where I was at. Now, everybody falls in a different spot on that spectrum of like risk, risk ability. Like, just set that down. I know. I'm just saying, like, just set it. Set it. Don't slide it. Just set it. We're getting there, guys. Second show. So everybody has a different level of ability to tolerate risk, what they need for safety, what they need for security, what they're able to tolerate. And so you have to figure out where you're at with that. And that all said, like I have written here, like which is my go-to suggestion for everybody, whether it's at T3 or if I'm doing a phone consult, it's, keep your day job. Keep your day job and be safe, make money, take care of yourself, and slowly work into the other gig, which is exactly what I did. I did not like one day say, I'm going to become a dog trainer and everything else can go kiss my ass. I valeted cars day and night, and then in between I scheduled training sessions, and I went to people's homes, and I drove across all of LA for hours at a time in traffic to get to one session to try and build something, and dealt with clients that weren't the best because I didn't know any better and because I had to take whatever I could take at that time. And so that's really the story, is like, know what you're able to tolerate risk-wise, and then be very smart about mitigating that risk as much as possible, because like even if you have a high tolerance for risk, it's stupid to just risk just because, I think. So, but you have to knowing that risk tolerance space will help you know when you're able to jump. Some people may need to jump when they've got, or may be able to jump when they've got $10,000 in the bank. Some when they've got 5,000, some when they've got 25,000. So it really depends. But keep your day job and slowly work your way into it organically, and that will help you be safe as much as possible. It won't guarantee your job, it won't guarantee that your business will succeed, but it will do its very best to make sure that you're as safe as you can possibly be as you try and explore the possibility of building a business, which is incredibly tough.
And I guess it's also one of those things where you have to see how much of the day you want to give up, right? Like if you have to be willing to, like, after your one job, your day job, to then take sessions, maybe just one, maybe you are happy to do 3 in the same day, like 3 sessions every day after work and all day on the weekends.
Depends on drive. Yeah,
like 100%. If you want to work all day and you're not scared of it, then you could fill yourself up so much that you could work 3 days out of the week instead of 5 because you're getting so busy. and then work one day just in case.
Yeah, I mean, back in New Zealand, you were working 3 jobs and
Three dogs plus dog training.
in between, and making it work. So it's like it's not supposed to be easy. So if you want it, go get it. Be smart about it.
Yeah,
Cool.
I enjoyed it.
Cool.
Okay. Question number 12. Facebook. Jamie Burns. Sean, you are amazing, and thank you for providing so much information for us all to learn from.
I'll drink to that.
It's so helpful. I have a client with a young dog that freaks out in her crate. She yips and barks and slams herself into the crate. I worked with her and her owner about going in calmly and only going in once she is told, and not letting her come out until she's calm and invited out. We don't close the door until she's settled, and when her owner leaves the house, she remains calm in the crate. That all is going well. But if her owner stays in the house while her dog is in the crate, her dog will work herself up again and do the freak-out stuff, correcting with rolled-up socks, being chucked at the crate, or hitting the crate with a pie tin makes it worse. My question is, do we just let her cry it out until she eventually settles, or what else would you recommend? Thanks.
So I like the pie tin.
That's a smart idea.
Yeah, it's going to be noisy. I just wish they would make like a pie instead and send it to us. But
And
anyways,
keep it in.
I digress. So we use e-collars for crate issues all the time. Every dog almost that comes in here has some kind of an issue in the crate. And they're not all separation anxiety. No. Some are just like, I want out. Some are, I'm not used to being in here and I'm pissed off about it. Everybody assumes that the dog is freaked out, overwhelmed, melting down. A lot of dogs just like, I just want out. I just want to go do what I want to go do. And some dogs will just be bored and they'll start whining or whatever it is. You're not going to know what the reason is. And if it's happening when the owner's is there, I would say if I'm gonna venture a guess at what the reason is, it's because the dog wants to be with the owners, and the owners have probably shared too much affection, too much freedom, too much allowance into proximity, meaning close space with the owners. And so now the dog's like, this contrast doesn't make any sense to me. I'm here, you're there, I want to be over here, and so this is going to be a problem. So I'm going to whine and let everybody know my discomfort, my displeasure, my discord with this. So it's a simple fix. It's put an e-collar on the dog, and what's great about it is the dog can be in another room, and if they whine, scratch at the crate, bark, howl, do anything untoward in the crate but relax and chill out, you just correct. It's really as simple as that, and I prefer it far more to bark collars. Bark collars are really, I have yet to find a bark collar that I feel fantastic about. And I've yet to find a bark collar that, because they don't exist, a bark collar that will allow me to correct any tiny little thing, because bark collars miss a ton of stuff. They miss a that kind of sound, or they might miss that. They might miss a host of things, but they also miss allowing me to correct at levels that I know are going to help the dog. They just correct whatever level you've got it set at. Sure, you can set it higher, but it's just not very flexible. An e-collar, on the other hand, you can actually, in the moment, work with the dog. And the dog's starting to whine, and so you correct it like an 8. And the dog's like, and then starts to like whine again. So you roll up to 12. Like he whines, that's my whining sound. And then, hey!
You're making the dogs
right?
bark.
I've got a special connection. And so, anyways, no. And so the trick is that using an e-collar allows you the ability to correct anything, and then allows you the latitude to correct at whatever levels you need to. And some of these levels, for some dogs that are really serious in crates, if you do have a crate breaker or separation anxiety, and this goes against what so many people say, and they can say it as much as they want, I've just seen it work 1,000 times, is that if a dog is in a crate and is starting to freak out and starting to amp up and cycle up and like, I'm trying to get out of here, if you don't do something about that, you leave the dog in this cycle where they just keep getting worse and worse and worse, and they'll hurt themselves, they'll break teeth, they'll break claws, they'll chew the crate apart, things like that. They may even break out of the crate. Instead, correct. Break the cycle, stop the cycle, get the dog to allow the dog the opportunity to relax. And everybody's like, oh, you're going to create this negative association and punish the dog in the crate. He already hates the crate. Now he's going to hate the crate even more. No, no, no. He hates the crate or he wants to get out. It's already there. What the e-collar can do is actually help you stop that. It can actually help open the door for the dog to like calm down and walk through the door and go, huh, this isn't so bad. And that's breaking the emotional cycle. So that's my suggestion.
Oh, question number 13. From Jessica Morrison, also on Facebook. My 2-year-old golden retriever is great at healing on walks, but when we stop to speak to a neighbor, he gets so excited and pulls me towards them and cannot calm down, running around them, trying to run up down their driveway front lawn. He's on an e-collar, but he doesn't seem to care about the stim at all in these situations. He cannot settle, making a simple conversation with another person impossible, not to mention embarrassing. Any advice would be greatly appreciated.
Time to put that golden down.
Bum, bum, bum.
I'm just teasing.
We don't do that.
No, I'm teasing. Here's the deal. You're most likely doing what happens with a lot of owners. And it comes from a good space. Owners don't want to hurt their dogs. They don't want to make their dogs uncomfortable. They don't want to freak their dogs out. So it's like this heart thing that gets in the way of doing what's the best thing. And so your dog is acting the fool. Your dog is acting disrespectful. Your dog knows commands, and your dog, as far as I know, has been trained. And yet, when you get near people and things that become competing distractions or competing motivators or just competing things in your dog's mind of like, you want me to stay here, but I want to go there. Now you've got this competition in the dog's mind of like, I want this, but you want this. And then you're trying to share a consequence that's way down here. And the dog's like, but going over there, the reward is up here and your consequence is down here. That's what I mean by underwhelming the dog. So the real trick here is that you need to come up on your levels and be believable with your dog so your dog starts giving you a hard time. You're working with great tools. You're a million miles ahead of the game. You're so much further ahead of the game than most dog owners. So now it's time to use the tools rather than be afraid of them or nervous about them or concerned that they're going to undermine or create some negative fallout with your dog. They're not going to. Teach your dog what you want and hold them to that standard. And you can have a freaking great dog, and you can have a dog you're proud of rather than a dog that's embarrassing or doing all sorts of silly stuff. It's not a complicated thing. Like if you hear me getting heated or frustrated, it's not at you, it's at this ongoing concept. I'm so frustrated that people are still struggling with these simple concepts. I want to get them across. I want to get these concepts across to you guys. Like, your dog is misbehaving because he can. Stop the misbehavior. You've got great tools to do it. Let's make the consequences valuable enough to where your dog makes different decisions, and you can live a really great, fantastic, amazing life with your dog if you'll do so. And that's the switch. That's the trade-off. But that means, oh, I might have to make my dog uncomfortable. And you have to be prepared to do that. And if you're not, then you have to be prepared to have a disrespectful, impolite, nutty dog. And that's kind of the reality. So I mean that all with love, but I hope that lands for you.
You gotta crush it. The desire to want to freak out and wiggle around them and act a fool and be ridiculous. But also, if you don't mind me quickly adding again.
Jump in. While you jump in, I drink your drink.
Drink my drink. So it says that he pulls you towards him, assuming he is on a leash. But also then you say in parentheses that he's trying to run around them and trying to run up, down their driveway or front lawn.
I was confused by all that, so I didn't know what to say.
Which then makes me assume he might be sometimes off leash.
Yeah.
So then it would be a really smart choice to have him, as you walk up and you want to talk to your neighbors, put your Who is the one misbehaving? That looks delicious.
You haven't seen it yet.
I can see the delicious.
Oh, it looks terrible. It looks terrible. Go ahead.
So if he's trying to, that would make me assume he's off leash, which I would suggest put him in a down and make sure any like too excited wiggling on the ground, even though he's still holding the down, you correct. If he tries to get up, you correct it firmly to where it's believable, to where he can calmly relax and lie there. So if he's on a leash, stop pulling, get him to sit down, get him to stop wiggling, crush the excitement, the foolishness, and if he's off leash,
let's say cap it.
Cap it.
Crush sounds like getting German.
I'm sorry, cap the excitement. And if he's off leash, in a down, and have him hold it down. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah. And I think just to kind of build off what you're saying, if you're allowing a lot of freedom, wandering around and doing all sorts of nutty stuff, your dog hasn't earned it yet. So your dog is misbehaving, and you're allowing way too much freedom for what your dog's able to do.
Yeah.
Okay. Your brownie's great.
I'm unable to speak right now.
Okay. Choked up?
Mm-hmm.
That's what you get with Q&A Saturday, guys.
Okay, question 14.
Just to be fair, 2 blocks away, everybody else in the world
is partying on Bourbon Street.
Is partying down like motherfuckers out there, dancing, going crazy, drinking, partying down. What are we doing? We're here.
But we love it.
I know. I'm just saying, like,
this is our party time.
The sacrifice. Yeah, but there's this. We're having brownies and cookies and some drinks and sharing time with you guys.
Yeah, it's great. I love it. And perfectly fitting for this, the amazing number 14 Facebook from Holly Fletcher saying, "What? Yes, I love Q&As." That's why we're here, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And I'm on my second round of listening to them via podcast. They have been an incredible help. I'm starting a business and would like to know what you have found to be some of the best qualifying questions to ask clients to make sure they are committed to following through with the training. Okay.
Right? Okay, Holly. So first of all, thanks so much for trudging through 1 million episodes and being there with us and hanging out and doing the Q&A experience. Really appreciate it. I'm glad you're back, giving us another chance, if you will. Okay, so what cauliflies? It's been a long day.
What cauliflowers?
What cauliflowers?
What cauliflowers and broccoli?
What qualifies?
I'm so funny. I'm sorry, but I'm so funny.
On a scale of German 1 to 10, she's a 10 in Germanic. Okay, so what qualifies clients? Can you read the very end of that question again? I'm having a hard time saying clients.
What are some of the best qualifying questions to ask clients to make sure they're committed to following through the training?
Okay, yeah, that's why I was a little bit tripped up, because my notes are less about questions. And so, I'm batting hairs out of the way, border collie hairs. So, while questions are important, the most important thing I think you can do if you're trying to qualify clients is transparency. And I said this in the last episode, I think, as well. Yeah. And that's, I'll just read you my notes. Transparency on your website, right? So you can, I always say the same thing, like at T3 and other spots. It's like, you can do the work now on your website, on your social media, on all these different, in all these different areas. You can do the work, or you can do the work through emails and on the phone. And the work there is far harder and psychologically far less valuable and far less impactful, if you can follow me on this, for your client than it is if they, bear with me, if a client sells themselves on you, the psychological impact is far different than if you're on the phone or in an email and you're selling the client on, this is a great product and we do great work and da 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 da. Or like let me do some role playing. Keep this brownie away from me. So you call up your client and you tell them all about your great services, your great products, the success rates you've had. Oh man, clients are so happy. We can turn dogs around. We can do this. We can do that. Blah, 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 blah. That's one state. The client is going to be like, well, it's like you're going for a job interview, because you kind of are. You're going to give the best. You're going to say the best. You're going to present the best. You're going to give all the good stuff. Or you could put it all on social media every single day, showing up, which makes it very hard to be non-transparent. Like if you show up on social media every day, teaching dogs, interacting with clients, speaking to the camera, speaking to prospective clients, it tells people an awful lot about you. A lot more than these pretty little moments that you can definitely like cultivate on the phone or through email. So through social media, and then also through your website. I'm a huge believer, even though this is controversial for a lot of dog trainers and dog training marketing concepts. They say, don't tell them the price, don't tell them the tools, don't tell them the programs, blah, 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 until you get them on the phone and you can sell them. It's not how we do it. So you want to know what are good questions to qualify good clients. Stop thinking about it as questions so much and start thinking about it more as a filtering process. If you set up your social media and your website as a giant filtering mechanism in a good way, your social media is going to start filtering people. It's going to show people who you are, how you train, what it looks like, what the dogs look like, what kind of dogs you look like, what kind of dogs that you train look like. And your website's going to do the same thing for you. It's going to tell them what kind of pricing is going on, what kind of tools you're using, what kind of program you're using. So if you're a client, you get to walk in and you don't have to have anybody give you like any fancy questions to test you out or anything like that. You, if you're lucky as the client and you're lucky as the owner of the business, let me see if I can clarify this, as the client, they've been able to do all this research in their PJs at 3 a.m. in the morning and find out who the hell you are with zero pressure from you. And this is the critical component. Everybody's like, get them on the phone. Like, if you try and get me on the phone to try and sell me, you're gone. You're toast. I will never do business with you. Regardless if you were a dog trainer or anybody else, I know why you want to get me on the phone. I don't mean you. I just mean in general. I know why people want to get you on the phone. And that's so they can create some kind of sense of obligation and start moving you through this little sales process, sales speech, sales script to try and get you to commit. And it's bullshit. And so I push back completely against that. T3 pushes back against that completely. So like me, Jeff, and Tori, who are the teachers there, what we teach is a completely different concept, which is put it all out there. Be completely transparent, share it all, and let people come to you. Let them sell themselves. Let them go, I like that guy. Or if it's Jeff, I don't like that guy, but I like Tori. Or I'm teasing, but it's really like personal. When you're shopping for a dog trainer, you're going to start seeing, like, if you're watching their social media, you're going to start seeing like, they feel really good. They've got a warmth about them. I like the way they express themselves, or I like the way they work with the dogs, or I don't like the way they work with the dogs, or I don't like the way they express themselves. And so that will help direct clients towards the right person. And so it's not just about getting clients. It's not just about getting people in the door. It's about getting the right people for you. And the way you get, like, I always go back to this, is the cheesiest one. Everybody like always hard times me about it. But it's just like internet dating. Like, how are you going to have the best shot at grabbing the most, I should say, how are you going to go about grabbing or let me say it again. How are you going to go about having the best chance of grabbing the best mate? Are you going to do it by bullshitting them or waiting 3 months to tell them the truth about who you are or anything like that? Or is it going to be about like sitting down to dinner and having a polite and appropriate conversation about transparency and things like that, so people can know who they're dealing with and they can move forward like that? I really think of this as internet dating, and the more transparent you are, the better people feel about you, and the less they feel you're trying to hold something back, or you're trying to sell them, or you're trying to manipulate them, and the less resistance you get. So instead of questions that you can ask, start thinking about what mechanisms can I put in place through my social media and my website that creates a filtering process that causes people to be drawn towards me, and that sells them on me. So when they contact me, they're not saying, okay, convince me. They're like, man, I've watched your videos, I've seen your website, everything looks so good. I know what program I'd like to fit into if it works. When's your next availability? That's a very, very, very different conversation.
And having people walk into your home and saying it feels like I've already been here and have met everyone is amazing.
Yeah, I mean, you want to talk about trust, you want to talk about people feeling different about you. Start sharing more videos and more content and more things like that, and all of a sudden people show up and they don't just treat you like the neighborhood dog trainer who's just a random face down the street. Suddenly you become somebody they know and they're familiar with, and even like a micro celebrity to them, which is a special thing. So I hope that helps.
Okay.
Yep.
Question number 15 on Facebook from Larissa Lucas.
We're getting there.
E-collar on, and she does everything by verbal command, no corrections. E-collar off, she says, what? What did she say? Huh? I can't hear you. Sometimes if her collar isn't on, I'll pick up the yellow device, and one look, she goes to a place. So what is that about?
This is perhaps one of my favorite, I'm going to make a little brownie ball here.
A brownie ball. Look at that. It's beautiful.
Okay, let's put this blueberry away. It's distracting me.
No, that was the one that fell on the floor. Now I don't know which one it is. I can't eat them.
We can wash them.
I'll put them in your smoothie.
Okay, thanks.
After I wash them.
Okay, we'll work it out.
Okay.
One of us
I'll
will,
give them to the dogs.
whoever perishes first will know who got the blueberry. Anyways, okay, this is a super simple one, and it's all based on a concept that I share all the time. You may have even heard me say it. How do you behave, or how do you drive when there's a cop behind you? Dramatic pause. How do you behave when there's a cop driving behind you on the freeway or the highway or the whatever you guys call it, depending on where you're at? Typically, 99.9%, unless we're some kind of like sociopath that's out to like, you know, rile up things and cause some trouble.
Play GTA in
So
real
keep that from like flapping if you could.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. 99% of the time, if you're a normal person, you're going to change your behavior dramatically. So if you start thinking about policemen as e-collars and e-collars as policemen, it'll all start making sense. So when you take the e-collar off, the policeman is pulled off the freeway, and now you're free to go about your business and start pushing boundaries again. A policeman pulls back on the freeway, you're going to slow down and start behaving appropriately again. The big question is why? Because they can both deliver consequences. It's really that simple. Everybody wants to make this more complicated, and if your dog was trained right, you wouldn't need the tool, and like, really? I'm pretty well trained about the rules of the road. I got a ticket last week. So, well. So the point is that when cops are behind you, you drive differently. When e-collars are on the dog, they behave differently. And the whole reason is because consequences can be shared when either one of them when one is on and when one is close, and when one is not close and when one is off, you're going to get different behavior. It's really that simple. So I hope you can kind of wrap your head around that one. It's just like, keep it really simple and stop thinking of your dog as being a jackass or pushy or bratty. Your dog's just smart. Your dog's just like, you just pulled off the freeway. You're the cop, meaning the e-collar, and you, I'll do what I want to do.
Question number 16 on Facebook from Alison Schneeberger.
Is that a German name?
Yes,
Give it some real oomph.
Schneeberger, I already did.
That was good. Yeah.
I have a dog that is reactive whenever someone other than myself changes position, especially from a sitting to standing position. I have tried a muzzle and he turns into the sweetest dog with it on and doesn't react. In fact, will cuddle with the person. But the minute I take it off, he goes right back to being Cujo. What am I doing or not doing wrong? I have tried the shock collar, but that didn't seem to make a difference.
Okay, so her dog is reactive off of muzzle and a little sweetie pie with the muzzle on, right?
Yes.
Okay. So I would, if your dog was coming to us for training, we would teach your dog a full e-collar program.
Yeah.
And we would start with the muzzle to make sure your dog was safe. But then we would quickly move your dog off of muzzle as your dog learned that humans were in charge and dogs weren't, and that there were consequences for making poor choices. Then we would teach your dog a full program: sit, down, place, recall, e-collar, heel, all that good stuff. And it would all be done on e-collar. And your dog would learn how to stay on place and mind its own P's and Q's. And if your dog misbehaved, or if your dog growled, or if your dog loaded up like this, or your dog snarled or barked at anybody, your dog would be corrected. And if you need to back tie your dog because you don't feel safe enough about it, and at this point, then put a leash on your dog, back tie your dog to a heavy piece of furniture, and put the mat somewhere close to where your dog can't break and get to whoever the victim might be. And that way you can stay calm and cool and relaxed and work through the problem. But that's really the situation. Your dog is making, like, your dog knows, it's the same thing as the cop principle I was just talking about. When the muzzle's on, your dog knows that it's incapable of doing anything. When the muzzle's on, your dog is like, cool, I gotta be a good guy. And who knows what kind of nuttiness lurks in our dogs' minds, why they go up and like solicit affection, when they would typically be barky and snarky, but now I've got a muzzle on. I'm like, well, okay, maybe they're hoping that the person will take it off. I don't know. But the whole thing is, this goes back to like dog training 101. It doesn't matter. Just take care of the problem. And the problem isn't the muzzle on or the muzzle off. The problem is leadership. The problem is structure. The problem is rules. The problem is freaking accountability. It's like, hold your dog to a higher standard. Train your dog completely. Like, don't just do some kind of half-assed, like, well, he knows to go to place and sometimes he'll hold it, or, we try and move him away from the front door. Like, that's not good enough. If you want to have your dog off muzzle and be well behaved, I'm pretty sure that we could get that. And I'm not trying to sell you. I'm saying, like, as a comparison, pretty sure we could get that for you in a week, 2 weeks. So it's not like it's some kind of rocket science thing. It's about, here's the command, here's how it works, here are the consequences for breaking it, and your dog goes, I'll sit tight. And if I bark, correction, maybe I won't bark. And then all of a sudden things start to move in a different direction.
So to sum it up, basically, it's not, the problem is not the dog wandering around and you trying to correct with the e-collar and then saying it doesn't work because he still does the same thing. It's about teaching what place means, and then once you taught it, to hold him extremely accountable to never break it. You step 1 foot on the floor and it turns into lava to where it's so hard you want to jump back on place. And then it doesn't matter if someone starts sitting up or standing up or jumping around or running across your sofa or running across your house, your dog would not stand up. And then you don't worry about a muzzle, you don't worry about anything for that matter. So it's not the muzzle and it's not the failed e-collar, it's the accountability.
And the wandering is what you're hinting at. I think what you're hinting at is that there's this looseness in the environment.
It's like you let the dog wander around and then you correct for any like growling and it didn't work, so what do you do now? Like
Right.
the dog shouldn't be wandering in the first place.
So I think what Marta's really getting at, which is a really good point, is that your dog is in this loosey-goosey mode, and then you're trying to say, stop being so loosey-goosey, and your dog...
probably also on like super low levels too, that are like not meaningful to like anything to the dog.
Yeah, but I really want to get the point across that there's a reason that we use so much structure, and it's to pattern dogs. Think about this if you think about nothing else. It's to pattern dogs to learn how to disregard things going on in their environment rather than reacting to everything in their environment. And dogs that wander and just do whatever they want, make their own decisions, even if you like make 2% of the decisions, those dogs are going to make all sorts of bad decisions. Dogs who 98 to 99% of the time decisions are being made by the owner are going to be in a different gear, and they're going to be patterned and conditioned that somebody knocked at the door. Should I go? Should I stay? And they're going to look to you for advice or for information. And if you let them wander, you're going to get the opposite.
Yeah, awesome. Question 17 from Perry Depew.
Depew.
I am a disabled person. I started this past Monday, June 3rd, using your training protocols in the house. I am unable to walk my dog because of my physical issues, but I run a walker with a recumbent trike for exercise. I began using your protocols while out on it. Stop at every corner she must sit when I stop, etc. Do you feel this is an adequate substitute for an actual walk? I am seeing some amazing changes in her in just 4 days. Thank you.
Well, that freaking rules.
Yeah.
So we've had a few disabled owners come through. Some have used e-collars, and we've found ways to rig up e-collars to their, in ways that they could use them with their wheelchairs or otherwise. And I just love that, like, so many people, like, I hate to like bust some balls here, but so many people complain about how challenging their situation is. And it's like, then you hear a story like this and it's like, come on guys, like, let's all man up and woman up a bit, and I think we can do a little bit better than just sit around and complain about how challenging our dogs are. So here's somebody who's disabled, who's working through a program to hold their dog to a high standard, and to me, I just freaking applaud them and think they're
4
amazing.
days.
Yeah, 4 days. What happens in 4 days when you change the leadership, change the structure, change the rules, change the tools, change the whole deal? I don't know. It sounds like you get something different. And so I just want to applaud you and say great work. And your question was, your main question,
Is it adequate?
excuse me, was, is that adequate? Absolutely, 1,000,000%. Dogs are so adaptable. If like some of my most valuable walks for dogs mentally are done at like a snail's crawl, and I will purposely do that to work their mind because they just want to go. Now, it doesn't mean you can't have times where your dog is, allowed to be in the yard or at a park or something like that. I don't know what your situation is, and you can throw a ball or your dog can chase something and have some fun like that. Hopefully not chasing kids, but you know what I'm saying. So you can definitely have exercise in an outlet like that, but don't be shy about using whatever your life and lifestyle looks like and doing a great job with it. Don't look at that as being some kind of less than valuable or less than effective way to work with your dog. You're probably doing about a 99% better job than most owners out there. So congrats to you.
Yep. Awesome stuff. Question number 18 is on Facebook from Michael Sigmund. What are some of the ways you deal with a nervous dog that isn't motivated by food, toys, or praise, and frees up with any leash pressure, flat buckle, or prong? With low-level remote collar stimulation, same reaction. No reaction. The collar is fit properly, and with single digits on a micro-educator, I can see his neck twitching.
Okay, so we might have a bit of a different training kind of concept, view, ideology about how to make things like this for nervous dogs move in a positive direction. So let me see if I can kind of like break this apart and maybe make some sense of it. So what worries me straight out of the gate is, what do you do with the nervous dog that isn't food, toy, or praise driven? That's never a question for us. We're never looking for a nervous dog to be food, toy, or praise driven. We don't want them to be in that space. What we want them, because there's time down the road, that's what everybody misses. There's time down the road for play and all that stuff, but I get this impression that, and I'm not trying to cast aspersions or say that you're wrong or it doesn't work what you're doing. It's just, we see so much of people trying to get dogs like amped up and engaged and like, cool, let's do this, and get them amped up and train them in that fashion, rather than what most dogs need, which is slowing them down. And it's counterintuitive, and 99% of dog trainers would say it's wrong and say that I'm full of shit and say what I'm suggesting right now is a very poor approach for a dog that's in a nervous state. And that, of course, getting them more excited about praise or more excited about toys or more excited about food would be a great bridge to get them to a different mindset. The reality is a lot of those dogs, for one, if they're really nervous, they won't take any fucking food, they won't fucking play, and they don't want you to fucking touch them. So none of that stuff works. So instead, you simply train the dog. We start working the dogs as soon as they come in. They go out, and they go out on, the first day, it's a structured walk on prong and e-collar, and if there's any praise or anything, it's going to be very light, most likely. Mostly it's just going to be verbal markers that are neutral and just teaching the dog our communication system. And then in the same day, the interior work is going to be a very methodic, slow, what's the word I like to use?
I know it, like meditate.
Meditative. It'll come to me, but it's counter to what most people are looking to do. Trance like. It's really about, like, most of these dogs have lived a very unstructured, loosey-goosey lifestyle, a lot of motion, a lot of action, a lot of reaction, a lot of like, I don't know about this, I'm worried about this, and just freaked out. Instead, we just take complete control, like top to bottom. Dog doesn't make any decisions, dog doesn't make any choices. And that might sound harsh, but that's how you get a dog who's worried to go, okay, I'll buy into what you're doing, and you can show me the way. And that helps relieve a shit ton of stress and anxiety. And so we start doing the place command in this very kind of like methodical, slow dance. It's hypnotic. It's not fast. It's not snappy obedience. It's trance-like. And what we're doing is we're basically like, it's almost like a massage. Like you're almost working the dog out of the space. Without doing that stuff. You're actually working the dog into the space of just like, here we go, place, good, let's go. And it's quiet like that. Turn them around, place, good, let's go. And it's just over and over again. And the dogs, literally, you can watch them, they're like, they just start to relax. But everybody else wants them drivey. It's like, no, get them relaxed, chill them out, get them to feel comfortable in their skin for the first time. And if they come to a place where they're feeling happy and excited and reconnected to themselves and able to reconnect to feeling good about food and praise and toys and things like that, once they're in a good space, then have at it. Then knock yourself out. Yeah. But until then, man, the best advice I can give you is be sensitive, be present. It doesn't mean just like manhandle the dogs. It means be sensitive, be present. Not president, but you can be the president. But be sensitive, be present, and just train the dog and train them in a way that helps them rather than what we're all locked into this mindset of like, this is what dog training looks like. And this is what good dog training looks like, because they're all happy and they're all feeling good about it. It's bullshit. A lot of these dogs don't look good and they don't look happy and they're miserable and they're struggling and they're a mess and they're melting down. Accept it, work through it, help them, guide them, just help move them through it. But you have to be smarter and you have to think outside the
Question number 19.
Yes.
Good day, Robbie. How you doing, mate? Robbie's from Australia, and Robbie says, Sean, my only resistance to an e-collar other than its band here in Australia is timing. My dog constantly pulls on lead. I would just like to know the timing of it all. When the dog surges, do you say heel, then tap, or tap, wait till it sinks in, and dog moves into place, and continue with heel command? Thanks.
What were you going to say about Australia and e-collar bands?
So I would double check the area where you live in Australia, because there's not many places in Australia, not many regions where it's actually banned. So
I think it is where he's at, but it's not everywhere. Just so people.
And prong collars, most people think they are illegal, they're banned, but they're not. They're just not allowed to be sold within the country. So you can still order them from like here, from in the States, or Europe or somewhere, and yeah.
Okay, so Robbie, how are you, man? You've been on the page a lot, and it's been nice having you. Always have good stuff to say. So I want to break this down into two pieces really quick for you. So you say your dog's always pulling on the leash or the lead. Before you can get anything happening that makes for a good walk, you have to get rid of arousal first. It's first and foremost. It is the penultimate goal in order to set up everything else for a good walk, because you can have the best tools in the world, the best training concepts in the world, and if the dog is fully aroused and you're trying to train through it, man, you're stuck. So a couple quick techniques for that. Walk your dog up to the front door. Open the front door, you got your e-collar on, you got it rolled up, you open the door, relax the leash, let your dog make the mistake. I call that create the invitation. And that doesn't mean like push him out the door. It means open the door, let your dog make the decision. Your dog steps out the door, big correction. Much bigger than what would be deemed fair for that situation. The whole concept of that the correction, like the correction has to fit the crime is one of the biggest fallacies in dog training, and what keeps so many people held back, because they're like, well, he just kind of stepped out of the threshold, so I just needed a smaller correction to like get him. He corrected and he came back and he sat down. It's like, yeah, but that didn't have an impactful moment that leads to ongoing progress and ongoing mindfulness with your dog. You have a small window in many contexts with your dog where the corrections will have enough impact physiologically and emotionally to where they will really land, and to where your dog will really get them, absorb them, and then carry them forward with them to think about, maybe I shouldn't do this thing. So front door, create the invitation, be rolled up on the dial, your dog steps out. High level consequence, small infraction. Seems unfair, works amazing. Your dog goes, whoa, I shouldn't have done that. Maybe I really need to start thinking about you. Then when you're ready, you start walking down your path towards the sidewalk. The second that your dog steps just a teeny bit in front of you, high level correction. And I don't mean I'm not talking about setting your dog on fire. When I say high level correction, I'm saying if your dog works at 7 or 8, then be at 15 or 20 or 30 or something like that. But it's up to your dog, whatever's valuable. But the goal is that the second your dog makes that step ahead of you, out of, there's this little golden box that's the heel position. Everybody waits until the dog's like, well, he's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 inches. Okay, I'll correct now. No, you just created that pattern. You just said, that's okay. That's okay. That's okay. No, that's not okay. If you're asking about timing, what's okay is the tiny movement, correction. Tiny, you barely even see it. Tiny movement, correction. And then your dog learns, oh, there's no wiggle room. This is my spot. This is my position. This is where I got to be. So high level correction appropriately for your dog. And that is the second that your dog moves the teeniest bit out, heel. And your dog goes, whoa, that was like terribly unfair. Like, how? I was just like taking a few steps out. It's like, exactly. That's my one moment with you. I wanted to make sure that you got it. I wanted to make sure it landed. So you get out on the walk and your dog is still pulling. You're like, I tried a couple of things Sean said, and I've still got this guy who's amped up. Okay, 180s on your prong collar. Let your dog get out in front of you, relax the leash to where he doesn't even realize it. Pop with two hands. As soon as he gets to the end of it, boom, you turn, go the other direction, and your dog's like, whoa, what happened? And you do those over and over again until your dog is like, I'm right with you, buddy. I'm right with you, buddy. I'm right with you. And here's the thing people often miss with 180s. They think that they're just for focus. They think they're just for handler respect, but they don't realize that they do a huge, huge job on diminishing arousal, which is incredibly important for the rest of your walk to be successful. So, and this is something you don't have to do just at the top of the walk. So if you're walking, and we're still on arousal here, buddy. And if you're walking and your dog starts to get in front of you and is blowing off corrections, jump back into those 180s with the prong collar. Like, you don't have to get stuck on one tool. I see trainers and owners get stuck on, well, I can only use the e-collar. I can only use the e-collar. It's like, well, what about if you use the prong collar and the 180 and the dog all of a sudden is like, wow, that's the most impactful thing in the world. Great. Now maybe the e-collar can be used at an even lower level and like far out. That's great. So first, get rid of arousal. That's your gig. One last way of removing arousal before you leave your house, because you don't want to carry a bonker around outside or you'll probably be tackled, is bonk your dog at the threshold. If you don't want to use the e-collar, if you find that the bonker is more effective, have the bonker ready, create the invitation. Your dog tries to walk out of the front door. No, bang. And your dog goes, what? That was so unfair. I was just sniffing, seeing what's out in the cool, fresh air. It's like, no, you stay right here. So that's arousal. Now, once we're trying to get into the e-collar heel and you're talking about timing, so I'm going to backtrack just a few steps. I'll try and go really quick with this, and that's that you've had to have patterned your dog for a good 2, 3, 4, 5 sessions, depending on your own ability and your dog's challenge level of low level pressure, prong collar on, guidance, heel at the same time. This all happens at the same time. Heel, because your dog's in front of you, guide him back into the golden position, button comes off, leash relaxes, verbal cue, good, right? Then you keep walking, dog starts to move out a little bit in front of you, heel, and at this point you can allow a little more latitude, because remember when I said like, you're going to correct your dog for the tiniest bit of motion early on. So now we're basically breaking it down into 2 pieces. So I got to make sure this is crystal clear for you and everybody else so no one gets confused. So when I'm talking about arousal and nailing that, I'm talking about a dog that's already been trained. I'm kind of doing this in reverse order, so I hope that makes sense. So the stuff I talked about at the top of your answer is for a dog that's been fully e-collar trained already, and now you're going to share arousal reducing approaches for that. Now, but I have to make sure before I say and green light that you understand and have done all the other things appropriately, including anybody else who's watching this. And that's why as you're walking with your dog who's just learning how to e-collar heel, it steps out in front of you on the button at a level not so high that your dog is worried, but not so high that the dog ignores it, enough that your dog cares and prioritizes it. You heel, slightly guide back, dog's in the golden position, off the button, relax the leash, good. Repeat, dog gets out in front of you as you're walking, heel, guide back, don't jerk back, guide back, dog's in the right position, off the button, relax the leash, good. Right? You do that over and over again, and that teaches your dog the position. Once that's golden, then you start holding your dog accountable with corrections. And that means what I was getting to earlier, which was partially being shown through the lens of going after arousal. But now we're talking about your healing with your dog. And your question was, do I say, what did he ask? Do I do I press the button and then say heel, or what was this question
When
exactly?
dog goes ahead, do you say heel, then tap?
Got it.
Or tap, wait till it sinks in, and dog moves into place and continue with heel command?
Gotcha. Okay. So we keep it really simple and it works really well for us. Here it is. And you'll be surprised how simple it is. So you're walking, you've got this golden position, your dog's right there. All of a sudden he steps out of it. Simultaneously, you press the button and say heel. And miraculously, your dog will go right back into position. And if he doesn't, you can give him a little guidance. But if you're worried about that, saying the word and hitting the button at the same time will cause them to cancel out each other to where the dog won't realize what's going on, that's not going to happen. I've seen it with a million dogs, and they all do just fine. So when you say heel and tap at the same time, they hear it, they feel it, right? So basically, they feel the sensation. They've also heard the word. The word gives more meaning to the sensation. Oh, it means I've got to go back here like this. So that's what it is. Don't try, at least in my opinion, I'm not down for correction and then adding heel, and I'm not down for saying heel and then adding correction. Some people might disagree with me. All I know is that it's what works for us, and it's what works for our clients. So we keep it really simple, and if it's simple and it works, then it's what I highly, highly recommend. Simultaneous correction with a simultaneous verbal command.
So just to recap, get rid of arousal.
Yep.
So the dog isn't overexcited.
Well, sorry, seeing as I did it wrong. First, train your dog how to e-collar heel, low levels. Then teach
with press and hold
guidance. Yep. Then teach your dog how, with corrections, how to e-collar heel, right?
Which means you don't wait until he's already out of position, but as he's
the split second.
Just you know he's thinking dirty thoughts of like wanting to go a little
and he
bit
moves
ahead,
just
and
a
you go
teeny
bang.
bit, and you say heel at the same time,
Yes.
right? When that went like that, heel, just like that, easy peasy. And then the other stuff that I shared at the beginning of it, because I did it in reverse, is how you go about removing arousal. Because even with the best timing and the best e-collar and the best stuff, like I said, you will struggle if you aren't able to get arousal out of the dog.
Yeah.
Cool?
Overexcitement is
Yeah.
just like
Yeah, well,
that's what I've always known just in the beginning.
Yeah, the problem with the reason why I like arousal is because it helps people understand that there's excitement, but the arousal has all of this and not that excitement doesn't have some of that too, but I think there's more going on hormonally with the dog that really puts them in a bad space. Okay. Should we hit the last one and wrap this?
And quickly, just if you don't know what a bonker is, it's a rolled up towel, because bonking in Australia means something very different.
I know. He knows what it is. He's been on the page enough.
Well, okay. Anyway, question number 20.
But good clarification, so he doesn't think we're still on a sex show.
Well. Okay, so question number 20. Our last question is from Doug Smith. What tools do you start with on day one of your board and train program? Only prong and e-collar, or only e-collar?
Okay, Doug. So this one's super easy, and we've kind of, sorry, I got bugs. We've kind of already covered this, I think, in some other answers. But when a dog arrives, typically on their day of dropping off, we work them through thresholds. So the very first thing they do before they can go anywhere, because we're not even like technically training, but we are training, is we work on thresholds. So it's basically human moves, dog moves, human stops, dog stops. It's not complicated. It's a very simple process. So we stop at a threshold, dog stops too, or there's a consequence. Then we move the dog out to the crate. The dog does not charge into the crate. If the dog refuses to go into the crate, the dog's going into the crate. So those are the first steps, thresholds and crate exercise. And between those two, if you do them right and you remove arousal from a revved up dog and you create an atmosphere of respect towards humans, and you help the dog realize that all those old patterns they've done with their owners are no longer in play, you create a level of safety, and you create a dog that is suddenly what I call self-aware. Now the dog's like, I better start thinking about things, which already changes everything massively. Instead of the dog going like, I bite when I don't like things, the dog's like, Maybe I shouldn't bite. Maybe I should think differently because these humans act differently than the humans I'm used to. So that's the very beginning. Then the next day when we actually start technical training, they go out, we size them up with a prong collar, and then we size them up with an e-collar, and we do e-collar heel, and that's the very first lesson that we teach them is e-collar heel with the prong collar. Just as I've explained, you can see it in several videos that I have for free. You can also see it in our DVDs if you want to see it in more detail. So that's the first exercise, and we typically do that slow and challenging for the dog. And once again, it's a process, so the dog won't know e-collar heel typically like within 5, 10, 15 minutes. Some smarty pantses, clear-headed dogs might be rocking and rolling after 20, 30, 40 minutes, but most of the dogs need a few days to really kind of like fall into place and get in the zone. And then the second exercise, which we do that first actual technical training day, is we do place command on prong. And so it might sound a little bit contradictory. Why do we do why do we do prong and e-collar for e-collar heel or for the heel, and why do we do prong only for place? It seems like it doesn't make sense, and that's come about as a very natural observation on my part, seeing what I think has worked more easily for dogs. And what tends to happen is that on a walk, dogs tend to be more revved up. They tend to want to go, go, go. So having multiple pressure sources, which are e-collar and prong, don't seem to bother them so much. They're less concerned about it because they've got all these other things that are exciting to them. So it allows us to be far more gentle on the dog than just a prong collar alone. With just a prong collar, if you've got an amped up dog, you've got to be pretty firm with those corrections and 180s to get the dog's attention. Conversely, if you're doing it with an e-collar and a prong, you can typically be very, very light with the dog. So that's our rationale for why we do prong and e-collar for the walk straight out of the gate, which contradicts what we do next, which is only prong collar, which is like our very methodical, slow, trance-like prong introduction to place. And the reason that I like prong without e-collar, not that you couldn't do it, because you can, and trainers do it, and I've done it with dogs that are in very short, dogs that the shepherd we had that had only been here, was only going to be here for a week, something like that, where I have to move a little bit faster, but the dog is also more clear-headed. If the dog's a wreck, it's really, really, in my opinion, a very counterproductive exercise, using multiple power tools. It's getting late. Using multiple pressure sources, because the dog's now in the house, the dog's not excited about everything. The dog's doing a very repetitious thing. It's not a like, ooh, this is exciting. They're kind of worried about the people around them. They're worried about the environment. And so what you do is you just use the simplest pressure source, which is the prong, and you just guide them back and forth. So they don't have to do any complex math as far as like, what does this mean? What does this mean? Even though they were having to do that on the walk, but on the walk, their brains were like, that doesn't bother me. That doesn't bother me because I'm like this. But when you're doing place inside the house and you're guiding them, it can be overwhelming for the dog. And we just find, if you're going to like really nitpick, we find that it's easier on the dog to do prong for the first 3 days, place, sit, down, and beginnings of recall, just with prong. And then once the dog, it's a real decompression, psychological kind of like release the baggage kind of thing. And then we start working more on obedience with e-collar stuff and adding that in. So hopefully that answers, like, we did 20 questions. Typically we do 5.
So we did a lot today.
I'm bushed. Are you bushed?
If that means tired,
Yeah, that means tired.
then yes.
Yes. Okay. So we're both bushed. I can barely speak. I've said president instead of precedent and multiple other things. Hopefully we've answered a bunch of guys' questions, and I can't guarantee we'll be doing 20 again next week, but there were so many questions that we just felt like we really needed to like Yeah, a lot of really good questions. So we felt we needed to kind of hammer through some of these. So next week, maybe back to 10 in order for us to survive.
Back
So
to 5.
or 5, but maybe 10.
Maybe 10.
I don't know. We're flexible.
Maybe 15.
Nah,
10.
it wouldn't be 15.
I think it will be 10, guys. I think it will be 10.
I think it might be 10 as well.
I think
Anyways.
Sean already made up his mind.
Anyways, so thanks for joining us, guys. If I don't know if I used to have a sign off for this back in the old days.
Did you?
I think I used to have a sign off. I'm rusty.
This was Q&A Saturdays, episode number 146.
There we go, right? So right, there it is. Thanks, guys. This has been Q&A episode number 146. Thanks for joining us. It just came back. Talk to you guys soon and see you next week.
And have a good weekend.
Yes, and don't forget to let us know if she deserves the gimbal or not. All
Yes,
right?
please, guys. I want the gimbal so bad. Like, be on my side.
We gotta go. Sorry, we're running out of film. See you guys.
Okay, bye.